And then I'm unmuted. I'm muted. Good morning. I am back for another uh, episode of Indictment of the Week. I had an emergency yesterday, so I apologize that I was not able to go live. But I'm here today. Let me know if you can hear me and see me before I get started on the indictment of the week. This pollen already is messing with my allergies. So if I sound a little hoarse, that is why. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Come on in. Let's talk about the indictment of the week. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I see people are on from Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Before I get started, someone please drop in the chat that you can hear me. You can hear me? Okay, perfect. I'll wait one more minute before I get started. Let's give other people a chance to tune in. Please share this live. If you are a tax preparer or if you are a taxpayer, share the live because there were lots of people that got the ERC money and thought they qualified, but did not know that they were being scammed. I'm going to put my phone on silent so there won't be any interruptions while I'm on my live. Everybody calls me as soon as I go live. Okay, you can hear me perfect. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, so let's get into it. Today's indictment of the week is about one of the largest COVID cases scams. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure I can see myself. Okay, people are joining. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Good morning, everybody. If you are new here, I am Melinda Tolbert. I specialize in helping businesses resolve their payroll tax problems, issues. I stop them from going to prison. If you've been following me, you already know that I don't just talk about taxes. I talk about what happens when things go wrong. Tax preparers, business owners, and wealthy individuals think they figured out how to beat the IRS. They inflate numbers and deductions. Yes, they inflate numbers and deductions. Some people create fake businesses, and some people even manipulate credits and refunds. And for a while, it works until the IRS stops auditing and they start building a criminal case. Bank records get subpoenaed. Investigators start interviewing tax preparers' clients. Prosecutors even step in. And eventually, someone gets indicted. Welcome to another episode of The Indictment. Let me ask you all something. I have enough people on here to have a good conversation today. Let me ask you something. Would you risk prison for a shot at $600 million? Now, I made a post the other day and asked if you woke up and $300,000 appeared in your bank account and you discovered that your spouse had that money deposited into your account fraudulently, what would you do? Would you choose love or law? Most of everybody said law. I know that's right. Like I'm not going down for anybody. So return to sender, as my auntie Lisa said, return to sender ASAP. I don't want any parts of fraud. Even if they think you're gonna get away with it, eventually you're gonna get caught. especially if you normally have an average balance of between 15 and $20 over the past 10 years, and then all of a sudden this huge $300,000 hits your bank account. You're gonna be it's a paper trail. It is definitely a paper trail. So let me see what people are saying. Would you risk prison for a shot at $600 million? Misha says she's choosing the law. I know that's right. I'm choosing. I love you, baby, but I am not going down and doing prison time for anyone. So I asked that question because this is similar to what happened in the indictment that I'm going to break down with you all today. So I'm not going to give any names on today's indictment because they haven't been sentenced yet. They haven't even been to trial yet. This is an ongoing case. The indictment actually recently happened. So this is one of the indictments that will follow throughout. I'll come back on when they start trial or if they plead. I'll keep you all posted on this indictment. So between November in 2021 through June of 2023, a federal grand jury charged 7 people with running a multi-state conspiracy. So these 7 people, and they had other co-conspirators as well, but we'll focus on the 7 people that were supposedly the masterminds. And I also want to place a disclaimer out here. Everything that I'm discussing is allegedly. Everything. Okay, let's make sure we get the legalities out of the way. So they orchestrated a scheme to submit more than 600 million in fraudulent COVID related tax credits. They filed over 8,000. Yes, they filed over 8,000 false Form 941s. The United States Treasury, they didn't pay the 600 million, but they paid out approximately 45 million. So let me be very clear about all of this. This was not a mistake. This was, well, allegedly, it sounds like it was a coordinated federal fraud operation. Like these people had it going on what they were doing. So let's break down the scheme. I'm going to give you a breakdown of the scheme in steps. So step 1, what did they do? They created and they used businesses that didn't qualify for these credits. The entities, they were either inactive or they were active, but they had no employees. They didn't have any real business operations. And in many cases, most of these businesses didn't have a real physical location. Step 2, they filed false payroll tax returns. So they submitted forms 941. If you don't know what a form 941 is, if you are a business owner and you have employees and you pay payroll taxes, well, you're supposed to pay payroll taxes. If you have employees, then the way to pay those, the way to file those is by submitting form 941. So they submitted forms 941, claiming wages and benefits that were never paid. That's bold. Step 3, they claimed COVID related credits. So not only did they file the false 941s, but they used programs like the ERC, the Employee Retention Credit, and the sick and family leave credits. Now that sick and family leave credits, they were, if you had a fraudulent ERC return, more than likely they added those credits onto that return as well. So they double dipped, claiming credits for the same wages. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. Step 4, they fabricated payroll data. So they reported wages that never existed and employees that were never paid. Step 5, they didn't file supporting documents correctly. So if you have a business with employees, you're supposed to have W-2s. They didn't have any W-2s. They also didn't have any legitimate payroll records and no prior filings to support their claims. Step 6, they were ghost preparers. They hid their identity. Remember, we talked about the ghost preparers last week on the magician's case. Um, they did not list themselves as paid preparers on the returns, thinking that because their names weren't attached to the returns that they were going to get away. It's not that easy. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. They even use the VPNs to hide their IP addresses and their locations. I talked about the VPNs and the ghost preparers last week. Go back and watch the replay of those if you want more information on the ghost preparers and the VPNs. So a VPN is a tool that's supposed to mask your internet location. But federal investigators can still trace the patterns and the access points over time. So don't even waste y'all time paying all that money for those VPNs because they don't work. Step 7, and this was very bold. This was allegedly. They allegedly coached their clients on what to say if they talk to the IRS. So they didn't file allegedly all this false stuff and waited to be paid. They had the nerve to call the Internal Revenue Service to check the status of the payments on these returns. This is wild. So this is critical though, because once you start coaching your the client's responses, you're not just illegally preparing taxes. Now you're participating in conspiracy and obstruction, in my opinion. So step 8, communication. And this always gets the fraudsters. They communicated through phones, text, and WhatsApp like it would not be traceable. So let me be clear. All of this is evidence. So if you are a fraudster and you communicate through text messages, phone calls, WhatsApp, all that stuff is traceable. Even if you delete it, deleting this shit, is not a cover up because it can be extracted. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So they use text messages, the call logs, the chat groups, all of that stuff gets extracted and it is used in court. Trust me, if you're doing anything illegal, you should not be dealing with phones at all because all of that stuff can be extracted. Okay, step 9, they submitted false documents when the IRS asked questions. So when the Internal Revenue Service and the Social Security Administration requested additional information, they didn't just leave the shit alone. They didn't say, self, you know what? This is going too far. Like, they are really paying attention to these returns. I'm just going to leave this shit alone. I know I ain't got no business filing this fraudulent shit, and I'm just going to leave it alone. They didn't do that. They responded and they submitted false information, allegedly. So in the indictment, it stated that they even filed false W-2s to match the fake 941s. That's bold. This is where it gets worse because now it's not just fraud. This is obstruction at this point. Okay. So this is wild. They thought they were masterminds and they thought they had it all planned out. Okay, we're going to make these fake W-2s and we're going to make sure the W-2s match the 941 so we can get paid. Absolutely not. They just dug themselves deeper and deeper into the hole. So let's talk about the actual charges from the indictment. So count 1 was conspiracy to commit wire fraud. And I'll talk about what each charge means. And I'll also tell you why they received several counts on each charge. So conspiracy to commit wire fraud, this means that this charge alleges that 2 or more people agreed to carry out a scheme to defraud using electronic communications like phones, emails, or bank transfers. You don't have to be the mastermind. You don't have to be the one pressing the submit button. If you knew what was going on and you played a role, baby, you're now a part of conspiracy. All it takes is for one person to cooperate. Now everybody's involved. So this matters because the government does not have to prove every detail to of the fraud that occurred for conspiracy. The only thing they have to prove is that there was an agreement to and an intent to carry it out. Counts 2 through 53 is wire fraud. Give me 1 second. Wire fraud. I see this a lot, most cases. So what this means is each count represents a specific instance where electronic communication, such as the bank transaction, the emails, or the funds transfer, was used as part of a scheme to obtain money through false or fraudulent pretenses. So every time they submitted one of those tax returns electronically, that's wire fraud. That wasn't just a filing, that was a digital record. So every click, every submission, every transfer, it was documented, trackable, and it's permanent. So the multiple accounts, let me break down the multiple counts for you. So every separate transmission can be a charge of its own. For example, let's say that for each bank wire, for each PPP loan submission, and for each financial transaction that's tied to the scheme, this is why the wire fraud charges can stack up they can stack up quickly. Counts 28 through 45. Aiding and assisting in the preparation of false returns. What that means is this charge applies when someone helps prepare or submit a tax return that contains false information, and you knew it was false information. This is one that every tax professional needs to understand. You don't have to benefit from the fraud. You don't have to get paid from the fraud. You don't even have to fully understand the entire operation. If you help prepare, submit, or support the false information, baby, you're included. On this as well, there are multiple accounts because each individual tax return is treated as a separate violation. So if multiple returns were prepared with false information, each one becomes its own count. Criminal forfeiture. This applies to all counts. What that means is the government is seeking to seize any money or property that was obtained as a result of the alleged fraud. So this means that they're not just facing charges. When you use fraud money to purchase assets and property, they're coming for the money and assets. Anything tied to those funds can be taken. The bank accounts, they're going to swipe that bank, they're going to seize all those funds in that bank account, the vehicles, the properties. So if you are committing fraud and you go out and you buy all these vehicles, you go out and you buy all these investment properties, you go to all these high-end luxury stores and get the Louis Vuitton, the Christian Dior, the Gucci, the Prada, baby, they taking it all. They want it all. They taking it, swiping, no swiper. So even if someone serves time, the government also aims to recover the financial proceeds of the alleged scheme. So let's break down why there are so many counts overall. Federal prosecutors structure cases this way intentionally. So each act equal its own charge. Remember, I said every wire transfer has its own charge. Every loan application has its own charge, and every tax return has its own charge. It increases the sentencing exposure. So the more accounts means higher guideline ranges and more leverage in plea negotiations. It also strengthens the case narrative. So instead of one broad accusation, the government presents patterns and repeated conduct. I'm going to give you my opinion on why wire fraud is the government's favorite weapon. Wire fraud is one of the most commonly used federal charges for several reasons. Number one, it's extremely broad. Wire fraud only requires a scheme to defraud, and you're using your phones and your internet and your banking system. Almost any financial activity involves electronic communication. So this statute applies to a wide range of conduct. So when you are having a scheme to defraud, you're going to be on your cell phone. In order to get the money, you're going to use your bank accounts. And most people, or some people, they use email. It is also easy to prove compared to other charges. The government can rely on bank records, emails, text messages, and transaction logs. So remember, if you are a fraudster, even if you erase those text messages, they still can be extracted. Your bank records is a paper trail. Okay, please understand this. Each transaction becomes a separate charge. This allows prosecutors to multiply counts quickly. It increases pressure on the defendants, and it builds a stronger case through volume. It also carries serious penalties. So wire fraud can result to prison time up to 20 years per count. It also results to restitution. We just talked about restitution, and we just talked about the forfeiture of assets. It also pairs well with other charges. So wire fraud is more than likely going to always be paired with conspiracy, the tax-related charges like the PPP loans and the EIDL fraud cases is going to be paired with those charges. And that, of course, it creates a layered case that is harder to defend. So let's talk about how they brought together this mastermind scheme, what they did. Let's break it down some more. They created and used businesses that had no employees, no physical location. The businesses had never filed tax returns. And they were inactive or completely fabricated. Inactive means that they probably had an EIN number that was never used. They never filed tax returns. They never had real employees. Then they filed Forms 941 claiming wages that were never paid. They claimed credits based on payroll that did not exist. And they also double dip. Remember, claiming both the ERC and the sick and family leave credits on the same wages is illegal. So you kind of gotta, or you kind of need to know some tax law to be able to try to outsmart the government, which will more than likely almost never happen, but at least know the rules of the game. If you're going to try to play the game, know the rules. Again, they filed over 8,000 filings. Baby, this was a system. Okay. So this is where it gets interesting. They tried to hide their involvement by not listing themselves as the preparers. They used the VPNs and they communicated through text messages. I even read where they had like a script to send to all the people that businesses that they use, or the taxpayers' names that they use, or the other co-conspirators that they were working with. They had scripts that they used when they called the Internal Revenue Service to check the status of the refunds. Baby, listen, this was crazy. This was wild. to create fake W-2s to support fake payroll. That's a whole nother level of fraud. Okay. So let me look in the comments. Let's see what the people are saying. Let's have a conversation about this. What do y'all think about all of this in this indictment? Again, this is a newer indictment. They have not been to court yet. So outside of the indictment, that's the only information I have. But this is one of the cases that we are going to follow, and I will report back to you and provide you with updates on this scheme. Let's see how long I've been on. Okay, I got 3 more minutes. So let me share with you what we're going to discuss Wednesday. So today I just wanted to give you the indictment of the week. If you are a business owner, if you are a tax preparer, if you are signing tax returns, you need to understand this. The IRS may audit you, but criminal investigators are the people that builds the cases against you. So once that switch happens, everything changes. This is why you don't play with the IRS. This is why you don't play with payroll taxes. Definitely not payroll taxes, because payroll taxes is a whole nother level that you don't want to touch. Trust me. So this is also why you don't stretch credits. And this is why you don't follow what everybody else is doing, because you think these people got away with it. Now you want to do it thinking that you're not going to get caught. They probably didn't get caught as soon as it was done, but now you all see this. All of this happened during COVID 5 to 6 years ago, and now these people are now being indicted. So if you were one of the people that were either promoters of the ERC, or if you got some of this ERC money, I highly recommend you getting representation, especially if you get a letter in the mail saying that you were indicted, or somebody pops up at your door about this ERC. So Wednesday, I'm going to slow this down a bit for you all because some people watching it, like I said, they filed these credits. And some people really thought that they qualified because they didn't know the real rules of the game, or they were approached by promoters telling them you had a business and you qualify, or you had employees, you automatically qualify. You don't. So Wednesday, I'm going to actually break down the ERC, the Sick and Family Leave credits, the PPP, and the EIDL. I'm going to break down what those items really were for, and who actually really qualified, because everyone did not qualify for those credits. I am also going to discuss when things cross the line from legal to federal. So if you claim any of these credits, you do not want to miss Wednesday. And then on Friday, we're going to go even deeper. I'm going to show you how these cases are actually built. Not what people think, and not what people and not what people think, but what really happens. That's what I'm going to discuss on Friday. So we're going to talk about bank records getting pulled, phones getting extracted, phone records getting extracted, text messages being extracted and read, and money being traced. Because the government always they follow the money, they follow the paper. Okay. So if you think today was an eye-opening, Wednesday and Friday is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, because a lot of people partake in the fraud. But you all need to you need to know the truth behind it, and you need to know if you need help. And I'm going to help you determine that. So that's my time for today. I hope you all enjoyed the indictment of the week. So tune in Wednesday at 9 a.m. and Friday at 9 a.m. I'm going to break down this case even further. You all have an amazing, what's the day? Tuesday. Don't forget to be kind because you don't know what people are going through. And I will talk to you all soon. Peace.